So we're going to look at the Mishnah now on the bottom of Daf Kuf Chaf. The Mishnah says the following: Yoshnu miktsasam. So we're talking about the chabura that's eating together the Korban Pesach, and in the middle of the achila, some of the people, the members of the chabura, fell asleep. Yochelu kulam. They're allowed to continue eating the Korban Pesach. Yochelu, they're allowed to continue, but kulam, if on the other hand the entire chabura fell asleep, lo yochelu. They're not allowed to continue eating from the Korban Pesach because of the halacha that we discussed last time that prohibits you from eating the Korban Pesach in two different places. And the fact that they all fell asleep sort of negates the chabura, and it's as if they're starting in a new place. And here we have a comment here in the Masechet, which we want to go through. He says that the Mishnah earlier on Daf Pei Vav says that mutar lechalik Pesach echad liyochlo b'shtei chaburos. You're allowed to take one Pesach and split it so that, let's say, there's one chabura that eats this half of the Korban Pesach, and the other chabura will eat the other half of the Korban Pesach. Also the other echad, but one person could not be shayach, he cannot be part of two different chaburas that are eating in two different places. And Rabbi Yehuda darshans this from the pasuk in Pesach Mitzrayim. It says, "V'lokhu min adam v'nosnu al abatim asher yochlu oso bohem." Malamit shapesach nechal l'shtei chaburos. Right, so it says the word batim in plural. And that means two different chaburas. But with regard to the Pesach itself, it says oso, asher yochlu oso, in Lashon Yochid, which implies one Pesach. So you have here one Pesach eaten in two batim, in two different chaburas. And then the Gemara continues, Yochel yeha ochel b'shtei makomos. Maybe one person could eat the Pesach in two different places. Talmud Lomar, v'bayis echad ye'ochel. And we read it as if it says, v'bayis echad yochel. He has to eat it in one bayis, meaning in one makom, in one location. And he's not allowed to eat it in two different locations, only in one bayis. Now, if Yashnu Kulam, if the entire Chabura fell asleep, then it looks like they're eating the Pesach in two different makomos, because the moment that they fell asleep, they had what's called Hesech Hadas. They're no longer thinking about continuing their Achila, and it's as if they started a brand new Achila in a different makom. So the Chachamim were machmir, and they considered that this Achila, that let's say they would eat after they woke up, as if it were in a different makom. And all this is a gzera because they might come to eat the Korban Pesach in two different makomos. And now we turn to Daf Kuf Chaf Amud Beis. Rabbi Yossi Omer, according to Rabbi Yossi, we could be mekil, and well, let's see. Rabbi Yossi is a machmir, not a mekil, and therefore even im nisnamnu, even if they didn't fall asleep in a real deep sleep, but just some sort of dozing off, then it depends. If it was only nisnamnu, yochelu, they're allowed to continue their eating, but nirdamu, lo yochelu. So we want to figure out if Rabbi Yossi is a kula or a chumrah. He says here, the Rashbam, that Rabbi Yossi is Bola Hachmir. And he says the following. The Chumrah of Rabbi Yossi is that even if only Yoshnu Miktsasam, but then we'll see about the word Nisnamnu, but now let's focus on Yochelu. The word Yochelu means even if, let's say, let's take the case of Nirdamu. So Nirdamu, Lo Yochelu, when they wake up from their deep sleep, they can't continue eating the Korban Pesach, even if what? If Yashnu Miktsasam. Now, what happens in Hisnamnu? In Hisnamnu, then only if all of them were in that state of semi-sleep, of light sleep, which we call dozing, then they cannot continue eating. So the way that Rabbi Yossi is understood here by the Rashbam is the following. On the one hand, if it's a real Yashnu, which means Nirdamu, then even if it's only Miktsasam, when they wake up, they cannot continue eating the Korban Pesach. In Hisnamnu, then it depends upon whether it was Kulam or Miktsasam. Now, where would the Tanakhama disagree with Rabbi Yossi? Apparently, the Tanakhama is not differentiating between Nirdamu and Nisnamnu, and even in the case of Nirdamu, it's only if they all fell into a deep sleep do we impose upon them the Iser of Lo Yochelu. Whereas according to Rabbi Yossi, if it's really Nirdamu, then it doesn't matter whether it's Miktsasan or Kulam. Even in the case of Miktsasan, they're not allowed to continue eating the Korban Pesach. Okay. Now the Mishnah continues. In the case of a Korban Pesach that's eaten on the 15th of Nisan up till Chatzos, a Pesach liachar Chatzos, what's the status of the Basar a Pesach after Chatzos? When the time for eating the Pesach has terminated, mitame es hayodayim. And whenever you see mitame es hayodayim, which means that only the yadayim are tmeos and not the rest of the body, that's gzeras chachamim. Now, where is the original Gzeres Chachamim about Tumas Yadayim? That's the case of Hapigul Vanosar Mitames Yadayim. That a carbon that became possible because of Machshavas Pigul means Chutzes Manu Chutzim Komo, or a basar carbon that passed its allotted time is Nosar. In those cases, if you come in contact with the Pigul or the Nosar, then it's Mitames Yadayim. And the status of Korban Pesach after Chatzos, reflecting the Shita of Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah, is that of Pigul. I'm sorry, of Nosa. Now let's take a look at footnote number Hey. He says, "Shebe'esha osak bi'achas mi'arba avodas elu shchita kabal sadam o lochas rika choshav lechel o lahakta mimenu chutzim komo o liachar zman." So we don't know why the Rabbanan made this gzera of Tumas Yadayim. That's what we have to wait for, to see in the Gemara. So let's start the Gemara. Rabbi Yossi Omer nisnamnu yochelu nirdmu lo yochelu. Hechi domi nisnamnu. Omer Ravashi nim velo nim tir velo tir. So he's sleeping, but he's not sleeping. And he's awake and he's not awake. He's in that middle stage. And how do you determine that he's in that stage of nisnamnim? Kigon de kari leviani. If you call him, he immediately responds. But if you ask him some logical question, then he won't be able to analyze and come up with the answer. He's still in a state of semi-sleep. But if you ask him a question, then you remind him of the answer to that question, he'll immediately remember it. And that's that middle stage called Nisnamne, which we said, according to Rabbi Yossi, in Nisnamne, it depends upon Kulo. It's got to be Kulo, and then they can't eat the carbon pesach. Now, I'm wondering out loud here if this halacha of Nisnamne would apply to tefillin. Let's say you're wearing tefillin, you're not allowed to sleep in tefillin, but maybe you're allowed to reach a state of nim velo nim tir velo tir. That's something that we should have to figure out in Hilchos Tefillin. You might also wonder whether or not Misnamnem is a hefsek in tefillah, or perhaps in Kriyas HaTorah and Brachos, in Kriyas HaMegillah, for example. Let's say a person dozes off. This happens to me sometimes in the night reading in the Megillah, but I catch myself almost immediately. But maybe it's nim v'lo nim, it's not called a shena, and therefore it doesn't have the same status as nirdam. Abai Avi Yosef Kami de Rabba. So Abai was sitting at the Seder table of Rabba. Abai was a Yasom, he didn't have a father or a mother. Rabba was his uncle and his Rebbe, and he raised Abai. Interesting. Chaza de Konimne. And Abai realized that Rabba was sleeping a little bit after they began to eat the matzah. Omale, so Abai says to Rabba, Menam Kanoimar, is my master sleeping? Because we learned in the Mishnah that when you're eating your matzah, then the same halacha that applies to the Korban Pesach is that if you fall asleep in the middle of the achilas matzah, then you're going to have to start your achila all over again. Omar Le, so Rabbah responds to Abai's question, Menu me kominamne. Note, I didn't really fall into a deep sleep, but I was just dozing off. Utanana, we learned in our Mishnah in the name of Rabbi Yossi, Nisnamnu Yochelu. That unless all of them fall asleep, those that did fall asleep are allowed to continue eating the Korban Pesach when they wake up. But Nirdu, it's only if you fall into a deep sleep, then lo yochelu, and even if it's only miktas, so I'm allowed to continue eating the matzah when I wake up because I was only in a state of minamne. Okay, so here we have footnote number Yud Beis. So he says that Rabbah was eating in a chabura, and he was the only one who fell asleep. Abaye, who was there with him, did not fall asleep. And therefore, Rabbah responded to Abaye based on Rabbi Yossi that if Yoshnu Miktsasam, they can continue eating. And even Abaye, who says Menam Konayim Mar, he also agrees to the sheet of Rabbi Yossi. And apparently Rabbi Yossi is interpreting the Tanakam of the Mishnah that when it says Yoshnu Miktsasam Mutal Lechel, that's because they didn't fall into a deep sleep. Amalo Rabbah, even though Rabbi Yossi only prohibits it when you fall into a deep sleep, and therefore he tried to figure out whether or not Rabbah had fallen into a deep sleep. And Rabbah seems to indicate that we paskin la'aloch like Rabbi Yossi. If it was nirdam mamish, then it would be awesome for him to continue his achila, even if he's only miktsaso. And the Rashbam, he had paskins like Rabbi Yossi. And he says that even in achilas matzah, bisman hazeh, we don't have the Korban Pesach. Nevertheless, noig din zeh she'osur lachzor v'lechol li'achar sheyosham. I thought that if you fell asleep, you're not allowed to continue your achilas matzah. You have to start from scratch. But he's saying that it's also lachzor v'lechol achar sheyosham. He must be talking about the last kizayis of matzah that you eat at the end of the seder. That's what I suspect. And that achilas matzah is zeicher l'korban pesach, which was nechal asov at the end of the meal, and therefore that matzah has the same dinim as the korban pesach, and you're not allowed to sleep. Now he quotes a Tosfos that says that this story did not take place on Pesach, but rather on the night of a Tainus. And a Tainus is only no Heges B'Yom. But that depends upon whether he went to sleep or not. If he went to sleep and he wakes up during the night, then he's not allowed to eat. And Rav is going to prove from our Mishnah what's considered sleep. And the logic is going to be the following. Just like as far as Pesach is concerned, his namneim is not considered a deep sleep. And therefore it's not as if he's eating it in two places. So too in Tainus, it's not considered that he fell asleep unless he's in a deep sleep. So according to Tosfos, we have no proof, as the Rashbam would say, that the Isur of Achilas Yashen applies even to Matzah B'zman Hazeh. And Tosfos therefore insists that the halacha of Yashen Asur Lechel only applies to the Achila of the Korban Pesach at the time the Beis Hamikdash stood. Now, the Mishnah says, "HaPesach HaChatzos Mitami Yadayim," and that comes under the general Gzeres Chachamim that Tigul and Nosar is Mitami Yadayim. Alma says the Gemara we see from our Mishnah that Mechatzos Havile Nosar, that the Basar Pesach becomes Nosar at Chatzos. So Gemara asks, Man Tana. Which Tana holds that the Korban Pesach becomes no saref lechatzos? Rabbi Yosef, Rabbi Lozman Azariah. This Tanya, we learned in a brayso regarding the Korban Pesach. We ochlas abasa b'layla zeh. Rabbi Lozman Azariah omer. Never kan b'layla. My Palayla is there. If Yochlos Abbas Balayla Hazeh, whenever Lahalon in Makas Bechoros, it says Vavarti B'Eretz Mitzrayim Balayla Hazeh. So we have Gzeir Shav Balayla Hazeh, Layla Hazeh. Mala Halon, just like in Makas Bechoros, the Makkah was Ad Chatzos, or Bachatzos, that's more meticulous. Afkan here too in Achilas Pesach ad Chatzos. So the latest time for the Achilus of Pesach, going to Rabbi Lozman Azariah, has to coincide with the Makas Bechoros, which took place at Chatzos. What bothers my mind is if you have this Gzeres Shabbat, why not derive the conclusion that the Pesach should be eaten at Chatzos? But I guess since it says Balayla Zeh, and the Pshutel Shemikra in Balayla Zeh is any time during this night. But now we add the Gzeres Shabbat to tell me that up until Chatzos. Amalo Rabbi Akiva. Rabbi Akiva turns to Rabbi Lozman Azariah. V'alo nemer in Korban Pesach it says, "V'achaltem bich oso b'chipazon ad shas chipazon." So I guess it means till the time that they actually left Mitzrayim, which is called chipazon. But what is he doing with the Gzeres Shavah here? Let me just see. Rabbi Akiva is saying that in Korban Pesach it says "V'achaltem oso b'chipazon." B'chipazon means up until the morning when they left Mitzrayim, which is called Shas HaChipazon. So I don't know what he does with the Gzeres Shavah. Maybe he doesn't have the Gzeres Shavah. Oh yeah. That's what he writes here in Yutes. Rabbi Akiva lo kivel mi rabo sheish lidros l'segzer shom. So now, Rabbi Akiva is arguing against Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah. Okay, you have Gzeres Shava, but what are you going to do with this pasuk that says explicitly "V'achaltem oso b'chipazon," and chipazon means till the morning. So Rabbi Akiva is okay; he didn't have the Gzeres Shava, but Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah had the Gzeres Shava. And now he has to interpret this pasuk in light of that Gzeres Shava. Now we have an additional statement of Rabbi Akiva. In Cain, if we don't darshan the Gzeres Shava, ma talmid lomer balayla. The whole base of the Kal Vachomer was that the word balayla was redundant. So Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah derived from the word balayla that it's got to be before chatzos. But according to Rabbi Akiva, it says the ochlu v'achaltem oso b'chipazon. So therefore, the word balayla can't mean chatzos. So why did the Torah add the word balayla? According to Rabbi Akiva, according to Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah, balayla teaches me up until chatzos layla. But according to Rabbi Akiva, v'achaltem oso b'chipazon teaches me that you can eat the korban pesach throughout the night until daybreak. So why did the Torah say balayla, which means v'chatzos? So Rabbi Akiva says that the word balayla is added by the Torah lafuke to exclude a possible havamina. What was the havamina? Yochel ye nechal kekodshim bayom. So what does the word bayom mean in this havamina? I guess it means on Yudalit, Yom Shchitasa. Let's see what he says in Chav. Biyom Yudalit. And he says, Kederech korban toda shu dome lepesach shekein zman achiloso ad aboker shalom mochra sakravoso rashoy la'ochlo biyom shchitaso v'chol halayla ya'achel. So korban toda is a korban that has to be eaten before daybreak, but you're allowed to eat it on the day of the shechita and the night afterwards up till daybreak. So I might think that that the korban pesach could be eaten on Yudalit. Which, by the way, could have implications as far as Sipri Tzias Mitzrayim is concerned. Maybe we would fulfill the mitzvah of Sipri Tzias Mitzrayim on Yudal, according to this Havan. So that's what the Brisa says. Yochel Yehinechal Kikodshim Bayom. And Kodshim here is a reference to the korban toda that could be eaten on the day of its shechita. Hamalom balayla, balaylu nechal veinu nechal biyom. Now, how does Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah know that you don't eat the korban pesach on Yudalid Bayom? And the answer is from the Gzeirah Shava. He could learn that because it says balayla. And he learns balayla means not before Laila and up until Chatzos. So the Pshuta Shal Mikra of the Achlas Abasa Balayla, without the Gzeirah Shava, tells me that you can't eat the Korban Pesach mibod yom. But Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah, in addition, he has Gzeirah Shava to teach me that Balayla Azeh means up until Chatzos, when the Bechoros died. Rabbi Akiva doesn't have the Gzeirah Shava. And therefore, he would assume, Rabbi Akiva, that this mitzvah of Achilas Pesach, like the mitzvah in general of Achilas Kodshim, takes us all the way through the Laila until daybreak. But how does Rabbi Akiva know that V'yochel Abasa Balayla means all the way through daybreak, throughout the night? That he knows from the Pasuk V'yachaltem also b'chipazon, which means Had Shas Chipazon until Alos HaShachar. How does he know that the mitzvah of Achilas HaPesach does not begin mibod yom? And that's from the word Balayla. Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah also knows from the word Balayla that you don't eat the Pesach mibod yom, but he doesn't darshan the pasuk v'achaltem also b'chipazon to allow you to eat the korban pesach throughout the night until alos hashachar, because he has the gzeirah shava to bechoros, to makas bechoros. And from that Gzeirah Shava to Makas Bechoros, Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah learns that Balayla means up until Chatzos Laila. Now we have a question on Rabbi Akiva. What does he do with the word Balayla? Because he can't interpret it to mean up until Chatzos. He has V'achaltem oso b'chipazon to tell me that it's up until Alos HaShachar. And the answer is Balayla means not earlier than Laila. So the bookends here of Rabbi Akiva are from the beginning of Laila, not before Laila, because it says Balayla, and not like korban toda, which could be eaten before the night, meaning on the day of the Shechita. So that's as far as the earliest time for eating the korban Pesach. Now we get to the latest time for eating the korban Pesach, and we invoke the pasuk of Yachaltem oso b'chipazon to learn that you can eat the korban Pesach through the night, up until Alos HaShach. What are the bookends according to Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah? Well, not before Balayla, because that's the simple pshat in the pasuk Yochel as Abasa Balayla. So you don't equate it with korban toda. But as far as the bookends on the end, when is the latest time for eating the korban Pesach? There's where Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah invokes the Gzeirah Shava to Makas Bechoros up until Chatzos. And now we look back at our Mishnah, and our Mishnah says how Pesach Achar Chatzos Mitame Yasi Yadayim, that has to reflect the Shita of Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah. what I'm a little confused about, Rabbi Osai, maybe you could help me with this, is Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah saying that the Pesach after Chatzos is Pigul or Nosar? And that's why it's Mitamias Yadayim? Or is he saying that the same Gzera that applies to Nosar of being Mitamias Yadayim applies to Pesach Achar Chatzos? Here in the Masifta, he says that Af Basar Pesach Liachar Chatzos Nechshav Nosar. I'm not sure if that, just not sure how he knows that. I guess he's saying otherwise, why is it Mitamias Yadayim? And that's the Gemara's language. Alma michatzos havi leinosa. This is really strange to me because I heard, or at least I thought I heard, maybe now I'm thinking I made a mistake, that according to Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah, although the Chovas Achila terminates with Chatzos, but nevertheless it's not Nosar until the next morning, like all of Kodshim. Any kodshim that is eaten at night is kosher throughout the entire night. Here the Torah says v'yochlas habasar b'layla. This is a separate chovas gabra to eat the basar before chatzos, but after chatzos it's not nosar. Okay, now we move on. So according to Rabbi Akiva, the end zone, the closure, the latest time for eating the Pesach is Alos HaShach. And then it becomes... Try it again, Reuven.
It's hard for me here. I'm sorry, my connection is not good. And there's a note in the Art Scroll Gemara that it says from the Gemara here, we see for the Pesach at midnight, even on a biblical level. The writer of the Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah. This seems to be the view of the Rashbam, who struggles to explain how the verse does not leave until the morning is to be reconciled with the view that becomes Nusach. However, there was a Ruah at the end of Hilchos Pesach, cited by the Zalach Toda in Tzvachim, notes that the Tosefta in Pesachim states that it does not come us until morning.
Okay, so you're redeeming me, Reuven, because that's what I was taught. I don't remember hearing it from my Rebbe, but I remember learning it, that it doesn't, that even according to Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah, although the mitzvah v'yachlos habasar will terminate with chatzos, but it doesn't become nosar until the morning as all of Kodshim, because Korban Pesach has two different identities. It's a schizophrenic. On the one hand, it has its own unique identity as Basar Pesach, with its own Chovas Achila. But on the other hand, it's also Kodshim like any other Kodshim. And V'tor Zvachim, it doesn't become Nosar until the morning. So perhaps there's a machlokis in two different sugyas. If I understood, whatever I was able to catch from, If you don't mind taking a picture of it and sending it to me, that footnote. So then I'll be able to read it from my phone. But what I understand is that there is another approach to Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah to say that it doesn't become nosa until the morning. And but you have to answer now, if it's not nosa till the morning and you could eat it, so then why is it mitama yasiyadayin? I'm sure he addresses that in the footnote. Are you able to take a quick snapshot?
If you mean, yes, all right.
Well, let's just see the next piece of Gemara. The Rabbi Akiva, Hai hazeh mai ovidle. And it says, Olayla hazeh. And we use the word hazeh for a gzeira shovel. And whenever you have an extra word, you can use it for a gzeira shovel. And we compared it to the pasuk of V'avarti beretz Mitzrayim b'layla hazeh to Makas Bechoros. But according to Rabbi Akiva, what do we do with the extra word hazeh? Miboile limuute laila acher huda asa. Now, why was there a havamina that you could eat the basar Pesach not only the first night, which is Tesvav, but even the second night, following the first day of Pesach, on the night of Tes Zayin, Salketait Kamina Holu Pesach Kodshim Kalim, Shlomim Kodshim Kalim, Ma Shlomim Necholim L'Shnei Yom V'Layla Echad, Af Pesach. So Af Pesach, what's the Af Pesach over here? David Shetzivsa Torah Shabiyom Shchitaso Lo Yochal Ad Alayla. Right? On the day, which is Yudalid of Shchita, you don't eat the Korban Pesach until Laila. That's again Lafuke Korban Toda. Okim Leilos Mokum Yomim. So what we're going to have here is that just like in Korban Shlomim, you have Yomim, which means you eat it on 2 days. Pesach nechal shnei leilos. Pesach will have not 2 Yomim, but 2 leilos. That's mean Leil Tesvav and Leil Tesvav. The Yom and the day in between. So instead of like Shlomim, which is a day, a night, and a day, it'll be a night, a day, and a night. Is Kosav Rachmana Hazeh to tell you it's only on Leil Tesvav and not on Leil Tezayin. So according to Rabbi Kiva, we need the word Hazeh. Therefore, we don't have Hazeh as a redundant extra word for the purpose of Gzeirah Shava, to teach me until the time of Yavarti Beretz Mitzrayim B'Layla Hazeh V'Kesi Kol B'Chor, which means until Chatzos. And we need the word Hazeh to teach us that only on the first night, which means on the night of Tesvav, we eat the Korban Pesach, but not on the second night. And the Havamina was that we compared to Shlomim, and just like Shlomim has 2 days with a night in between, Korban Pesach, which is also Kodshim Kalim, would have 2 nights with a day in between. 3 onos. So it's really interesting. Until now, we've been saying that according to the Rabbi Akiva, the basar Pesach becomes noser in the morning. the morning of Tesvav. Now we have a Havamina that it's not nosur at all on Tesvav. On Tesvav in the day, you're allowed to eat it, and you fulfill the mitzvah of V'yochlas HaBasar, and even the night afterwards. And that Havamin is based on an analogy to Shlomim. And we need the word Hazeh to teach me no, only on this night, and therefore becomes nosur the next morning. Rabbi Lozman Azariah, what is he going to do with this drush of Hazeh? He also needs this drush of Hazeh to teach me that it's only the first night and not the second night. And the Gemara answers, we don't need a pasuk because milosa sirad boker nafkala. Again, losa siru mimenu ad boker, but that's not relating. That pasuk doesn't relate to the Korban Pesach. Rabbi Akiva, who derives from the word hazeh, that you cannot eat the Korban Pesach the next day and the night afterwards. Amalecha ilo koser rachmona hazeh havamina. We would have said, again, to derive by analogy from Shlomim, that the Pesach is eaten for 2 nights. My boker, what do you do with the pasuk of sir menimad boker? Is boker sheni. So you know what? Let me just open up the pasuk of Lo Sasiru, because maybe I made a mistake, and this pasuk appears in the parsha of Korban Pesach, Yud Beis Yud. Just see. Yeah. Iyim tzli eish, roshal kra'ah, val kirbo. It's referring to the Korban Pesach. But also siru menuad boker. So which boker are we referring to? We thought it's the boker of Tesvav, and now we're saying no, it's the boker of Tezayin, based on an equation, an analogy to Shlomim. Rabbi Lozer Amalecha Kol Hecha de Kosa Boker Rishonu. And we always interpret the word boker as referring to the first boker. So therefore, from the pasuk of Sir Men about boker, I already know that the Pesach cannot be eaten the next morning. It has to be eaten b'layla. So I don't need the word hazeh to teach me or to exclude the possibility that be nechal l'shnei leilos. And therefore, the word hazeh is superfluous, and I could use the Gzeres Shava to teach me ad chatzos. So Ruven, I'm going to get my phone now. You sent it to the phone? You sent me.
Yes.
Yes. So let me get the.
Yes,
phone.
I did.
Okay. Now, So just let me know, Ruvain, the footnote I want to look at is 21, number 21.
Dave,
You sent me a bunch of footnotes here. And
21. Yeah, no. I sent twice, so it didn't come out.
oh, I see. But the footnote number
The
20.
first page.
The footnote
21.
number 21. Okay. So let's see what we have here in footnote 21. He says, when the verse states in regard to the Pesach, do not leave any of it over until the morning, and whatever is left over until the morning shall be burnt in the fire. It does not refer to the time up until which one may eat the Korban Pesach, but to the time when the leftovers become subject to burning. So this is the brisket Tzvei Dinim that he's saying. In other words, there's one din as far as the Chovas Gavra Vachila, and that terminates with Chatzos. And that we're going to derive from the Gzeir Shava of Halayla Zet to Ve'avarti in Makas Bechoros. Then there's another halacha of Nosar. And that we're going to derive from the Pasuk Lo Sasir Menu Ad Boker. So in that night, between Chatzos and Alos HaShachar, it's going to be an Achilas Basar Kodshim to prevent it from becoming Nosar, but not a Kiyum of Achilas Korban Pesach under the Chovas Gavra V'Yachlu Es HaBasar B'Layla Hazeh. Although the offering can no longer be eaten after midnight. Oh, okay. Now he's assuming in the footnote that he can still, that he's not allowed to eat it after midnight. We're not assuming that way. We're assuming that Fakir, he's got to eat it after midnight, not, albeit not B'Toras Pesach, but B'Toras Kodshim, to prevent Kodshim from becoming Nosa. So in the paragraph here from the Gemara, he says that at midnight, even at a biblical level, the law of Nosar takes place, according to Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah. This would seem to be the view of the Rashbam. However, the Or Zarua notes that the Tosefta states that it does not become Nosar until the morning. And the Tosefta seems to be reflecting the view of Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah. This would seem to be the view of Rashi to Brachos as well. So again, why is it Mitame Yasiyadayim? That's what I have to figure out. Zevach Toda cites Chuvas Rambah Mipanuel, maintaining this view as well. He therefore explains Agamar to mean that since the Pesach must be eaten before midnight, according to Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah, it is rabbinically considered nosar after that time. So there are, you see, this is a pella to me. The Rabbanan are going to make it into nosar when it's not nosar until the morning. Not only that, there's a chiyuv achila after chatzos b'toras kodshim to prevent it from being nosar. So that's a pella to me. It's rabbinically considered nosar. Yeah. So he's not aware of the brisket Torah here. At least he doesn't quote it. He says the word hazeh is in order to teach the Gzeir Shava. Fine. According to Rabbi Akiva, he doesn't have the Gzeir Shava. So this Pasuk Hazeh is telling you that you don't need Pesach during the day because you might think that Boker is Boker Sheni, and Rabbi Akiva doesn't have that Havamin of Boker being Boker Sheni. Okay then, so I thank you very much, Ruvain. You're my art school man, because I don't have art school. and we'll